Hey Catholic Match, the video you're about to see is part of a brand new initiative called Relate, which is the community feature on Catholic Match. If you would like to join this event and events like this live, please check us out at catholicmatch.com/relate or click the link in the description below. Thank you and enjoy the video.
Hey Tony, thanks so much for having me, man. I'm excited to be here with you guys. That was a heck of an introduction. Wow, that's amazing.
All right, thank you. I appreciate it.
I'm like,
Thank
who's
you
that
for
guy? Who are you talking about? Oh yeah, wait, hold on a second. That's
Well, I have to say right off the bat, funny story. So I was
fire.
talking to my brother, my older brother, not too long ago. He was watching some of our previous videos and
Mhm.
whatnot, and he says, "Do you know who you should have on? Who would be awesome to have on for something like this?" I was like, "Who?" He's like, I think his name is Dr. Mario Sacasa. And I was like, we have him on next week. This
Well,
was
as a matter of fact,
yeah,
funny
so
you
it
should
was
ask.
pretty fun. You know, they ask and we deliver, right?
Yeah, that's what we do, man. We give the people what they want, right? That's what it's
Ex-
all about.
That's at least that's what we say we do, right?
Yeah.
So
Amen. Amen. That's
yeah.
great to hear. That's great to hear. And I'm
Mhm.
happy that your wife is a listener also, as you indicated, her being a therapist. Yeah, that's fantastic.
She she said I don't know if she's behind the door right now, but she said she was going to listen in from outside my office to this. So
Tell her
we'll
to
see.
come on in. Tell her she doesn't have to listen from the outside. She can just come right on in.
It doesn't look like she's there right now, but I'll have her come in if I see it.
Absolutely.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well,
Yeah.
um, Mario, I wanted to start out a conversation today,
Uh-huh.
with just talking about the state of the Catholic world right now.
Sure.
I think we're living in an interesting time with the advancement of technology, like I wouldn't say never before, but advancement of
It's not
technology.
that's not an understatement. I mean, AI is a game changer, and you heard that even from Pope Leo saying that what we're about to go through is going to change the world as much as the Industrial Revolution did, which is why he took the name Leo the 14th, because Leo the 13th is what shepherded the Pope that shepherded the church through the Industrial Revolution. So you're not being hyperbolic with the statement that you just made, actually.
Right, right. Yeah, the as a historian by trade, I have to
Oh,
say the
wonderful.
Industrial Revolution 2.0 excites
Yeah.
me, I will
Yeah, yeah,
say.
yeah, 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 yeah.
So, yeah, no, that's awesome. But I think with this, the amount of changes that's happening and everything like that, I feel like, and I have no sources to back me up on this, but I feel like there's a growing sense of anxiety
Mm,
amongst Catholics, especially the Catholic youth and whatnot, and definitely amongst Catholic singles with whenever there's change, right? We
mhm.
we naturally as human beings we fear it, generally speaking, right? And so I was wondering if we could start off this conversation a little bit
Sure.
by talking about right the anxiety, the growing anxiety among Catholics, in relationships, in their lives,
Yeah.
in their spiritual life, and stuff like that. Like, what do you think kind of attributes to this, and how do we tackle this?
Yeah, it's a phenomenal question to start with. So let's just look at the research, okay? So you can look at people like Jean Twenge as well as Jonathan Haidt and the research that they've been doing on Gen Z and looking at just this phenomenon, right? So we're speaking about Catholics specifically, but we'll get to that. But as a population as a whole, Gen Z is defined almost by their anxiety. That we've seen a rapid increase in anxiety and depressive symptoms in young adults. And so you can see it. The research is pretty clear. And how do we define Gen Z, right? Gen Z is anybody who was basically raised with a smartphone. So if you are 15 and you had a smartphone in your hand, exactly, that you're a Gen Z. So the technical cutoff is 97, 95 to 2012 is kind of the markers there. Well, why is that? Because in 2012 was the first time that America had crossed a threshold, and that threshold was over 50% of the population had a smartphone in their pocket. So front facing camera is invented in 2010. App Store is invented in 2010. Instagram comes out in 2010. Over 50% of the population has a smartphone in their hands by 2012. And most of the young people who are raised in that environment with a smartphone in their hand are facing communication differences, advancements in information, social connections have all changed, all of that. And so being raised in that, what we see very clearly is, and Jonathan Haidt refers to it almost like, if you look at the charting over the generations, there's almost like a hockey stick. It's like this rapid up and an over. And it's the
Sure.
only time you really see that in history. Well, and again, so you can look at that and say, well, why? And it's pretty clear that it's the smartphone that has completely just changed the way that we interact.
Mm,
So that's happening across the board, right, across the country. So we could stop and ask, well, why, right? Why did the smartphone bring about an increase in anxiety symptoms? And I think there's a lot of different reasons for it. But if we can boil it down almost to this, and I don't want to get too technical here, so keep up with me, hopefully, is
okay.
that for the first time in human history, like anytime we had an idea, we can actually follow through with whatever idea that we had. When I grew up, right, I'm watching a movie, for example. Here's a classic example, right? I'm watching a movie and I see an actor. I'm like, man, who's that actor? I feel like I've seen that dude in something else, right? And I can ask the 3 or 4 people in the room with me, but if nobody else knows it, guess what happens? That idea dies and it just goes by the wayside. What do we do now? Immediately, I'm like, oh, I'm going to IMDb. I got the answer to the question, right?
Yep.
Let me figure out who this guy is. So ideas come and go, right? That's the way it's supposed to be. Is that we generate a lot more ideas than what we actually engage in. But we
Mm.
live in a time where any idea that we have, we can engage in. And so the problem is that it creates it makes us feel like every idea we have to engage in, or we don't know which ones we're not supposed to engage in. So we're our attention is diffuse, that we're constantly thinking about everything that's happening, whether it's on social media, whether it's on whatever corner of the internet that we find ourselves in. We're constantly thinking about everything all the time because
Mhm.
our brain is always on, because we're always engaging, we're always entertaining and moving through ideas, and we're never giving ourselves any sort of rest. We're never actually shutting that off and allowing ideas to go, right? And recognizing that not every idea that we have is a good one, and not every idea that we have is something that we should even be entertaining. Okay, so what this has done is this has just completely changed the way that we behave as humans. I read a headline recently that said that the attention span of the average person is actually now less than the attention span of a goldfish. All right, which is really hilarious because
I
if any
I
any
read
any
that too.
listeners here, anybody chiming in, or Ted Lasso fans, and Ted Lasso, tells Sam in season 1, I get all the thumbs up, right? Thank you. Everybody knows where I'm going with this, right? Be like a goldfish, be like a goldfish. Well, Ted Lasso, the goldfish actually has to be like a human now because we're not thinking as much, or as intensely as we used to, right? So
Yeah.
it's generated this system among young adults as a whole, right? That we're just constantly thinking, constantly on the go, constantly engaging, constantly doom scrolling, constantly, right? And it's almost like this, what Huberman refers to, like this emotional or mental obesity. Where all we're doing is we're just eating Doritos and the equivalent of Sour Patch Kids, all the time. And so we're doing this all the time, right? So we get a generation of people raised in this. Okay, hold that. And then
Right.
we have simultaneously a continual breakdown of values, and continued breakdown of family, and a continued breakdown of what's most meaningful in life, for faith, decline in religious practice. All of that is coalescing and happening at the same time. And so what can go wrong, right? And so it's just, what could go wrong? Just as young adults, as a cohort, as a whole, right?
Right.
This is where we find ourselves. And then we take Catholics as a subset within this, who are young adults that are trying to find meaning and purpose in their life, trying to reclaim a sense of commitment to family, trying to reclaim a sense of values, and wanting to pursue career, but also wanting to make sure that they're finding people that they like and love, and like we're talking about here, Catholic Match, people that they can connect with. But they're swimming upstream, right? They're constantly swimming upstream, and so it's just it's the game has completely changed when it comes to dating, and we as a society and we as a church, we're not ready for it. We're not
Mm.
ready for it. All right. We have tremendous marriage enrichment activities, which I participate in. We have tremendous marriage preparation activities, which I've also participated in. But dating is where the church has to put its focus. Singles outnumber married adults for the first time in human history, and for the first time in American history, right? There are more single people in America than there are more single adults, excuse me, than there are married adults in America. And so
Interesting.
all of this has just completely changed the way that we do business. And so, like, uh, this is the reason why there's so much anxiety. Is it, like, as I mentioned earlier, we've retrained our brains to be less focused in a goldfish. We have a breakdown on anything that gives a sense of stability
Mhm.
and a security within our understanding of who we are and our sense of self. And then for those of us who are Catholics, we're swimming upstream in this world and trying to make sense of it, and then trying to find people who share a value set that we have also, which just makes things, right, so much more complicated, and it feels like folks are just swimming upstream all the time. So that's just a small snippet as to why we're experiencing so much anxiety. And you're
Yeah.
absolutely right. It's the reason. You're right. You're right to intuit and sense that it's increasing, because it 100% is.
Right. I love that. I love the image you, or the example you give of, when you're talking about the overflow of information we
Mhm.
receive, and if you see someone on a movie, you don't know their name, your friends don't know their name. it's gone, right?
Done, done. I didn't think about it again, right?
It reminds
Until a
me of a
shower 2 days later when my brain would just go, "Oh, it was what's his name?" Right? You know, that's how it
Yep.
works.
It reminds me of a and now I feel like this goes on with the extension of social media and whatnot, is like any thought you have, the entire world can know. Right now,
Right.
at your fingertips, you can spread it to the entire world. It reminds me of a saying by G.K. Chesterton, which is 9 out of 10 new ideas are just old bad ideas. Right.
That's right. That's
And
right.
so now these ideas, which 30 years ago would have been passed by the wayside, right?
Right.
Would not have been even given a second thought, are now with the world for the rest of for however long the internet is available, right?
Yep. Yep.
So
And then
it
add on to that, not just that those ideas are out there, but that because of social media and Reddit, there's elements of us that want those upvotes, right? We put a comment on Reddit, and like, how many people are actually liking that and upvoting that comment? I put a post on Instagram, how many people are sharing it? I put a reel on Instagram, how many people are watching it, right? So it's not just that those ideas come out, but then we fall into comparison, we fall into a sense of competition, and we allow a scarcity mindset to take over.
yeah.
Um, and so you do that in dating, yeah, it's gonna be it's gonna be a tough a tough go for sure.
Yeah, no, I'm 100%. Mary Alice, hello, awesome to
Hello,
see
Mary
you
Alice.
again.
Thanks for
Um,
joining us.
Talking about this topic, right? And
Uh,
so, how do we keep in mind that we are still human beings, not robots?
yep.
Many guys I've met don't know how to have a conversation with me, a woman, unless they have their cell phones, handheld devices to refer to, and whatnot, right? So, how
Mhm,
do we, right, in this world that is we're constantly um, dealing with non-reality, right? We're dealing with the screens, right?
mhm.
How do we focus back into reality and relationships and whatnot?
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, first, my heart goes out to her, and I'm sorry that that's been the case, and I know that that is a common phenomenon, on dates. And so, I guess I can answer the question a couple ways, but for the context of our discussion today with Catholic Match, let's think about that in the context of dating, if that's okay.
Sure.
So I think what can be done is just simple ways of how you even construct a first date, or you're meeting somebody. After you've connected with somebody in Catholic Match and you meet for the first time, it's hard to even call that a first date. It's just getting to know and see if the pictures, like, it's really, have I been catfished or not is really what I'm trying to do when I meet up for the first time, right? Are
Yep.
you actually who you say you are? Right? Are you presenting yourself correctly? And can I trust that? Um, instead of just going out for a drink at a bar or something where it's just sitting, do something a little active. Get a cup of coffee, get iced coffee. I know it's hot right now, but go for a walk. Do something that's actually forcing you to engage. Go on a hike. Do something that is actually like demanding your human attention, your human capacity.
Mhm.
It's hard to walk and look at the screen. It's easier to look at the screen when you're nervous and you're just sitting at a bar and you don't know how to interact, right? But getting up and doing that, and trying to make the experience, a little bit more active, I think is one way, that we can do that. I think you can also just simply, draw a boundary and say, listen, hey, I don't know how you feel about this, but really, I'm trying to minimize my experience with screens. And so I love for us, if we can, while we're on this date together, if we could just keep those phones aside, unless it's something that we're sharing pictures and talking about something. But I would love for us just to be able to have this conversation together. What makes that difficult though is, again, like, maybe you're face to face, and so that could be intimidating. So maybe if you go to a bar, sitting at the actual bar where you're side by side, and so you don't feel like it's like this interrogative interview.
Right.
Just some practical ways to think that through. You can set those boundaries up front and make that expectation known.
Yeah.
Um,
And
so
I love that, where it's like, yeah, it's okay to know what you want, and it's okay to have those standards and to have those desires. I had a buddy years back who he had a rule where if he went on a first date with a girl and he saw her phone, there was not a second date. Right.
wow,
If at any
wow,
time
yeah,
in the
yeah,
date he saw like the phone get brought out or something, like even being on the
yep,
table or something like that.
yep,
Right now, I'm not saying that's a universal rule for everybody, but it's
right,
you know, they have the standards,
yeah,
and you keep that, right?
yep,
You want a certain person who is not, addicted to their phone and whatnot. So
that's
I
right.
think that's a great question, Mary Alice. And
Yeah, it's very
I think
great.
especially with, I mean, dealing with, I think it's so interesting with people who were, a lot of people on Catholic Match are people who grew up and maybe their early dating was before the phones, right? So this wasn't even something they were taught to deal with or
Right,
even questioned, right? And
right.
now maybe they're starting to get into the dating world again, and they're faced with this completely new reality, and
That's right.
it's hard for people who grew up with it, let alone people who didn't, right? So,
Yeah,
um, yeah,
absolutely.
I
Absolutely.
love that. This is I love this question.
Mm.
Getting into a slightly different topic here, but
Sure.
a no less important topic. How would a person deal with feelings of unworthiness due to a porn addiction? This is
Yeah.
a fantastic, fantastic question, and thank you, whoever sent this, for being so brave to ask this. This is awesome, awesome question.
Yeah. First and foremost, just knowing that Jesus Christ died, suffered on the cross, rose again for you
Mm,
and for me and for everybody who's listening, in on this conversation. And reminding of yourself that your worthiness is won by him, that you're still made in the image and likeness of God, and that you're a beloved son, beloved daughter of the Father. That those messages, aren't just they're not just trivial. They're not just trite. I know we say this stuff all the time in Catholic circles, but like to really pray with that, to really allow that to penetrate into your heart. Those things are really, really, really transformative. Okay, and not just something that we pay lip service to. Because if it is that our worth is only contingent on our productivity, then we've missed the boat, right? We go back to the previous question to some degree that we're just robots. We're no longer human beings. Um, so first to acknowledge that, all right, and then the second piece is to see this addiction before you as as um, as a test or
mm,
as an opportunity for your growth, and that the process of you overcoming this addiction is in fact part of your growth towards holiness as well, and that
mm,
God is calling you and guiding you, and that the virtues that you acquire along the way, whether it's temperance or humility or learning how to disconnect yourself from your devices and developing a little more silence and stillness, increasing your attention, um, all, learning how to be more chaste, even in relationships, all of that will start to transform you. The beatitude is that blessed are the pure at heart because they shall see God. That
mm,
what happens is that your vision starts to change as you overcome this. And so rather than getting stuck in the unworthiness and in the shame that I understand every addiction loves to poke at, see beyond the shame, see yourself as you are, see yourself as you're called to be, as you're meant to be, but then commit yourself to the process of growth. And you can do that by joining an essay group. You can do that by availing yourself to the many online resources that are there for porn addiction. You can do that by going to a trusted counselor. You can do that by all of the above. But whatever it is, to commit yourself to the growth and letting that be your priority,
mm,
really to be able to overcome that. Okay, so the worthiness is already there. We've there's nothing that we can do to be more worthy of God's grace. It's already given to us. And so it like not letting the shame prevent you from tapping into that grace, and not letting that shame prevent you from actually taking the steps that you need to take, to move forward.
right, right.
There's a great story. Um, uh, I say great, but it's tragic here in the end. And I believe it's Saint Paul Miki and his companions. One of his companions who died was a physician, and the physician in this Japanese town, years before, had developed an opioid addiction. He had some pain, something in and he developed an opioid addiction. And at that time, they didn't know that addictions were biochemical. They didn't understand it the way that we do now. And he was viewed kind of as a moral failing, and that's what he lived with, throughout his life. But when the time for the martyrdom came, he was accounted as one of the martyrs. And therefore, he shed his blood for the faith. Therefore, as we believe that shedding your blood for the faith is a straight ticket to heaven. I mean, the martyrs are there. They've paid the ultimate price, and he did that while he was still addicted to opioid. Right. So I'm not saying go find a way to get martyred. Right. I'm not saying go chase it. Right. But I am saying, like, in God's mercy and in God's providence, he uses all things,
Mm.
and even your porn addiction, God can use it in if you allow Him into that space, and you commit yourself and avail yourself to actually doing the work that needs to be done.
I love that. I love that. Yeah, so it reminds me of something I was told once is right. God did not die for the perfect you, right?
Mhm.
God died for you with all of your flaws, with everything that comes with you, right?
Right.
So yeah, no, I absolutely love this.
Yeah, but again, I don't want to skip that point. I mean, that is, like, we say that so often that we lose it loses its weight. But like, to genuinely, that is the gospel story. that is the good news. That is 100% the good news. And it's that grace then that gives us the capacity to be able to become the best version of ourselves.
Mhm.
Jesus came to reveal the face of the Father, but also to reveal the face of humanity. I mean, that's what JP2 says. It's that he's come to reveal us to ourselves as well. So please, 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 whoever asked that question, that unworthiness that you have, carry your cross, kiss your cross, but trust and believe that God's grace is with you, and that He wants you to be free from this as well. So avail yourself to the many, many, I repeat, many great resources that are there to help you overcome this.
Amen. Amen. Yes, indeed. Okay, this question, let's see, it's an anonymous question.
Mhm.
Um, a wonderful man from Catholic Match flew to meet me very soon after chatting. We had a great chat and celebrated Mass, but he then tells me he doesn't do exclusive for a few months. That hurt and the doubt. Why do men keep their options open like this so often? Now, so I think there's two parts to this question, right? It's
Yep.
dealing with the hurt that comes from how do I cope with the hurt that comes from not necessarily rejection, right? But the prolonging of
Mhm.
something you desire, right? As well as maybe the psychological of like why do we tend to do this waiting so much?
Yeah, great question. So I would say again, what would be her expectation of going exclusive? Like how many dates classifies as enough to be able to then commit to one person and say that that's the direction that we want to that I'm heading in. And so like that question is going to be different for every person. And so for him, he's saying he doesn't want to go exclusive for a few months. Well, again, what does that mean? Does it mean he's still yeah, just what does that mean? You know, and that's what I would want to get fleshed out a little bit more, because it could be that maybe he could have plenty of reasons for them. Maybe he went too quick too soon earlier and he got burned. Maybe he does want to keep options open until something seems to materialize. You know, this is unfortunately one of the challenges with an online dating platform, and Catholic Match as others. You know, it's easy. Unfortunately, this is just a downfall with online dating as a whole. Is that it makes it a little bit easier to keep all those options open,
Mm,
because you can keep a conversation going with this person and keep a conversation going with this person and have all those running concurrently. And it does make committing more difficult.
mm,
This is what's referred to as the paradox of choice, where if we have too many options before us, it actually is harder to commit. It's harder to make a decision. It's harder to feel confident in the decision that we make. And so, for him, I don't know either of these folks, right? But I can just speak generally that it could be that. It could be that maybe he is more of an anxious type and he wants to be able to have as many conversations going to get as much clarity as he needs before he settles down and makes a commitment. Maybe he's hurt by somebody before.
right,
Maybe he's using the online system to be able to just meet as many people. And like I said, it's harder to commit when you have more options before you.
right.
Um, so I would say for her, in all honesty, it would be a question of one being clear within her own heart about expectations about what she's looking for,
Mm,
and making those upfront. Well, how quick are you expecting to commit to somebody? Um, and then it would be asking this, and I know again, I know this is an online dating app that we're speaking about here with Catholic Match, but it would be even worth asking, like, if online dating then is the right avenue for her, because
mm,
she's maybe is finding that most of the people that she's connecting with online are in this space where they're just keeping all their options open. But maybe if you met people in person or got set up, um, not telling you to close the Catholic Match, right? I want to be clear. I know who's paying the bills today, right? But concurrently, being open to being set up, and working with people and on a face-to-face place as well. That's
yeah,
just some thoughts that I have about it.
100%. And I mean, our goal on Catholic Match is for you to not be on Catholic Match, right?
That's
That
right.
that is our end goal, right?
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
want as many Catholic marriages as possible. I love you talked about, right? It's I think especially important. Obviously, we don't know the situation. We don't know the two people in this situation, but I think it's also important to that you highlighted, right? This doesn't like a decision to go slow or than you would want, right? That doesn't necessarily mean it says something about you, right?
Right.
It also most likely says something about them, right?
Mhm.
Maybe they're not ready. Maybe they've been burned before, right? And so to know that it's not necessarily, I think in my own life or in my own if I was in this situation, if I was the lady in this situation, I would probably feel inclined to say, oh, this is because of me, this is because I'm not
Right.
good enough to be
Right.
committed to or something like
Right.
that, right?
Right.
when that's not necessarily the case with that.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's a great point. That's a really great point, Tony. And so again, just right, the shame that we talked about earlier with pornography and even that, I mean, it's back to the anxiety when it comes to dating. I mean, that's it, right? It's like, how do I open up? How do I trust? How do I not fall into a cynicism? How do I not fall into a despondency about this whole process? It's really easy to slip into that. How do I maintain a sense of openness? How do I respect the person that's in front of me, even if they have differences? How do I work through the frustrations that I have and the patterns that I keep seeing, right? All of that is part of this. Um, and so it is a discernment, in terms of like, well, what's working, what's not working. How much pressure are you placing yourself? How much do you need to let go of? Right? God is using all aspects of our lives, and even the dating, even the frustration that's there, even the hardships that we experience. I mean, all things, right? All things can be used for God's goodness. I mean, all things, all things, all things.
for sure, for
And that
sure.
includes the hard things as well.
Yeah, for sure. I agree. This is a really interesting question, one we haven't touched as much.
Oh,
I
wow.
think let me. Okay, so are you aware of any Holy Catholic couples who one partner has HIV? What is a challenging response I can give to a woman who declares she is not interested in men who have kids or adults? So I think this is a two-parter.
Multiple
Um,
questions, yeah.
so we'll start with the first question, right?
So why wouldn't you want to marry Saint Thomas More? There's like 3 different questions that were happening there. Yeah.
I think the
Which
St. Thomas More one was about the annulled or married with kids. So the second question was dealing with how would I address a someone who says they maybe don't want to marry someone who has children already or who has been annulled or something like. So let's start with that question. And I think he said, why wouldn't you want to marry Thomas More, right? Because they was in a similar situation. So let's start with that question.
um yeah, I guess uh, uh, maybe I'm still not fully understanding it. We're saying that like if you're going on a date or somebody just right out of the bat, right out of the gate says, I'm not even interested in dating anybody who has been divorced and annulled and has kids. I don't want that. Is that
Right.
like, okay,
Yeah,
well,
or you've been rejected before for something similar to that.
yeah, something of that nature. If you yourself are the person who has kids, well, you
Right.
you can't. I mean, you can't force people to change. I mean, then it's hard. I understand that, but if that's what somebody's opinion is, if that's what they're looking for, if that's what they've set up as some marker for themselves, again, there could be 100 reasons for that. It could be that maybe they're young and they're not ready to be a step parent. It could be that maybe they don't want the complexity of that. It could be maybe that they are more shallow and looking for somebody who's hasn't been married or divorced before. I don't know. All I'm saying is for the person who's asking this question, there has to be a little bit of a detachment of an acknowledgement of where your domain of responsibility is and where your domain of control is, and letting go and allowing um, those circumstances that are part of your life to, how do I say this, to like letting God work within the real circumstances of your life.
Mm,
And that if some people you find are not open to that, okay, let them go. That's discernment. That's not of the Lord then. And you just let them walk. And then maybe God's going to guide you to people who are actually open to the circumstances. Because you're not going to want to force somebody to get comfortable with the circumstances of your life, whatever those circumstances are. You do want somebody who's able to look at you and say, "Hey, I choose you, and I choose you and all that you have, and all that you bring, and all that you are, all your idiosyncrasies, all your quirks, the whole package." Um, and so I know again, it can be hard when it feels like continual rejection in that regard, but again, that also going back to just one of the limitations with online dating is that online dating is very at least profiles can be very two dimensional, and so it's very easy to be like, well, this person doesn't have isn't tall enough, right? I mean, this is a different type of example, but like we can quickly write somebody off, and so he's not tall enough, and so I'm not even going to consider him, or she's too heavy, and I'm not even going to consider her, or something shallow like that, right? I mean, there can be that can happen. It happens often. And so, but then you're not meeting the person as they are. You're not giving an opportunity to actually get to know them. So again, I just encourage people that if you're looking on the profiles and you're quick to write somebody off because they don't quite hit a marker that you think they need to have, if they look interesting in every other aspect, then give them a chance. Open up, like give it an opportunity. Like get outside of that little checklist that you have, and give yourself a little bit of space to play, and to consider dating somebody that, like, if you're like, oh, I'm only going to date blondes, and they're like, well, like, does that really matter? I mean, like freaking like talk to the brunettes. I don't know. You know what I mean? Like give yourself like a little bit more room there. But
Right.
I'm saying that from both sides, right? The one space of you as the individual, like looking at when you're looking at profiles and deciding which one you're actually going to interact with, how harsh are you in that process?
Mm.
But then if you're the one who's having the like this situation, the profile being overlooked because maybe you have what might be considered a ding, right? Like you're divorced, you're annulled, you have kids, right? That's going to be too much of a burden. If the person looking at that swipes past and doesn't even consider it, well then it's not your job to change that person's mind. You have to kind of let it go, and again reiterate, acknowledge that God's going to guide you to the right person. And you don't want to. And if somebody's not going to date you just because of that, well then honestly you don't want to date them anyways.
That's it's
Just
very true. I like
just to be
the
blunt.
I like the right. It's if you're very picky with who you decide to talk to, you can't expect people to also not be picky as well, right? Um,
Yeah, you're again. I say this with respect to everybody, but you're part of the problem, right? I mean, like you just like you have to. We all have to acknowledge within ourselves, am I? How am I doing this? How am I making this better? Right? How am I contributing? How has this shifted my mindsets on things? Right? Like again, like let's. These are the profiles. These are real people. These are real people. Like these are real. I mean, these are flesh and blood, children of God, real freaking people.
Here's a question, anonymous as well. I've come across a number of attractive bachelorettes. However, some have attributes, habits, vices I struggle to accept.
Mhm.
How do I bring up such sensitive topics in a welcoming way that might be successful? And he gives some examples like attitude, weight, attire, harshness, etc.
Mhm. Mhm. That's a great question.
Yeah, great question.
Um, okay, so I would say probably not in the first date. Okay, and uh, probably not even in the second date. Honestly, it like those type of things. I think get brought up when you're really starting to consider, okay, is this somebody worth really committing to? And is this somebody that I can see those attributes? If you have your list of kind of 10 things, and maybe this person hits like 7 out of them, and you can see that, then you focus on those 7 things. And then the other pieces can be brought up in conversation over time if there's a level of commitment that emerges. Um, you know, uh, but if it is that maybe it's only like there's you're less to 10, but really you're only clicking off 2 or 3 of the things that you actually really care about, and it's like 7 or 8 that you don't. Well, then that's probably not somebody that you're going to want to be, kind of moving into a serious relationship with. So I err on the side of caution. I think, I mean, the weight one, just to be honest, I mean, like, I mean, like, that's yeah, caution. I've been married for 23 years, and that's a topic I'm not bringing that up, right? Like, that's not my place to say, does this
Yep.
dress make me look fat? No, you look awesome, right? Like, there's no way, right? That's what I'm going to say.
Right. And
And
I
so,
think it's an interesting thing to do with what I like to call the shallow red flags or stuff like
mhm,
that, where they're not real red flags, right? Maybe
right,
they're uh, preferences or something like that. But it's important to differentiate the preferences versus the necessities in a
right,
relationship,
right.
as well. For weight is a perfect example of that. People's bodies change, right?
Right.
And
Right.
and and the attractiveness of a person changes drastically
Right.
throughout a marriage. And so it's important to, that should, in my opinion, that should be one of the last things, if not never, something that's spoken of in that type of relationship. Like, yes, it's okay to have preferences, and
Mhm.
yes, you can find people attractive, yes, you can find people
Yep.
unattractive,
Yep.
but
Yep.
that being a deal breaker is a hard thing for me to grapple with, at least. But
Yeah. 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 I do too. Generally, I mean, like, again, like the attractiveness piece is something that can't be overlooked, and I
right.
understand that. Like, like there's more than friendship here, and you obviously want to be attracted to somebody physically. But again, like we're kind of saying, is that question of weight, or some of the other things. Again, harshness, attitude. I mean, those things are going to be things you're going to want to filter out anyways. I mean, if somebody is rude on to the barista at Starbucks. I mean, like, I mean, that's like a red flag to me, at least a strong yellow caution. I'm like, if they're that rude to complete strangers, you know what I mean? Like, how are they going to be in an engaged relationship?
Right.
So again, it goes back to the sense of, yeah, how much do I hold on to this person? How much do I bring this up to into this is really the question, and it's a valid question. How much do I bring this up for the sake of trying to give this person an opportunity to change? I
Right.
think that's the heart of the question that's being asked, and that's a I would say that's a discernment. That's in a case by case. I mean, I don't know if I have like a hard and fast rule on that one, but I would say if you're interested enough and you want to be able to bring up a conversation about some of this and to see, right, are they aware of their impatience while waiting in line,
Yeah.
or something of that nature, then I mean, are they open to changing that? Those are certainly, questions that are yeah, that are worth engaging in. But
Yeah.
I don't think that stuff gets brought up until you actually even have a sense of, like, I really actually want to commit, or I want to explore, I want to give this a shot.
Mhm.
I like them for all these other things except for these couple things. And is there an openness, or is there an awareness that those things are there, and an openness to have some change on that? You're not even gonna, like I reiterate, like, you're not gonna even get to that level of questioning until there's some a mutual interest for this to become something more than just a casual dating.
Right, right. I agree. I put this question up here because I think it's fairly similar to what we're
Mhm.
talking about, right? With the importance of physical attractiveness,
Yeah.
right? In a relationship, right? Can you speak to how important being physically attracted to a potential spouse is?
Yeah.
Can couples make it work if one person is not initially physically attracted to the other?
Yes. The answer is yes. All right. So to what degree is physical attraction important? Is a great question. All right. So we'll say this. All right. Everybody again has their list of things that they're looking at. And maybe for somebody, physical attraction is at the top. All right. Maybe that is the thing that they need. They need that. Okay. Right. We can talk about whether or not that should be at the top or not. Whatever. Fine. But like, let's say that is. Well, then you're gonna have a very high bar for the people, but that means you're going to be letting go of other qualities, politeness, depth of conversation, ability to engage with others. There's other lists, there's other marks on this list beyond just that, right? But if you're saying that that's at the top, then okay, that's at the top. Then there's gonna be a trade off somewhere else. That's just the nature of people. We're all idiosyncratic. But if you can allow that to maybe not be at the top, right, and knock it down maybe three steps, then you can open up possibilities with others, right?
Mhm.
Um, I hear this often where maybe initially the somebody goes on a date and they're like, I don't really, we didn't really connect, but fine, conversations were good. But you give it another chance, and and you keep going, and then at some point you actually see the person, like you see them, right, in a deeper sense of that word, like you actually see them.
Mhm.
And then when you see them, it's like, "Oh, okay. Like, now I see. Now I see." Right? There it is, right? There's the attraction. And so I wouldn't be dismayed by, or discouraged by not having that initial burst, right? That initial burst isn't there. It's like in the movies, they come out, and you're like, whatever, like I've zinged, like they say in Hotel Transylvania, which I hate. But like that chemistry isn't there right out of the gates. If there's enough there to keep the conversation going, and you want to have a second date or third, keep going, and then as you get to know them and see them, like, you might find something more, right? Like, they may be nervous the first day, maybe they got frazzled, maybe they just got out of work, and they're tired, and they're not on their there's 1,000 things that could happen, right? But if you give space for just a little bit more time, you may actually see them in a new way, and then when you see them in that new way, you might actually like them, and end up finding that they are more physically attractive. Now, again, it could also be in the end that physical attraction just isn't going to be a 10, and are you okay with that? Like, again, like, does it have to be at the top of the list, or are there other qualities that are a 10 that this person possesses, and is that enough for you? And
Right.
if that is enough for you, then move forward in the relationship. And to answer the question, yes, definitively, couples can make it work. That's 100% right.
Reminds me of, oh, I can't remember if the old Western movie. It's called Love Comes Softly, right? Where it's they marry because they're out on the frontier and then they
Yeah.
fall in love and stuff
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, 100%. I think you nailed that on the head. That's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
This question, talking about the physical touch, right? What does the
Uh-huh.
church teach on non-sexual
Uh-huh.
touching before
Uh-huh.
marriage?
Yeah.
Hugs, kisses, etc. I'll tell you, we had Father Larry Richards
Uh-huh.
on this podcast maybe a month ago now or something like that.
Uh-huh.
His rule is nothing below the neck with that one.
Oh,
But I'm
okay.
curious your take on this.
I think actually physical touch is important. I mean, back to the question that was asked earlier, how do we not feel like robots in a virtual world? We need to be touched. I mean, like we especially for those of us who work virtually. I mean, I spend all day, I see all my clients virtually. I do podcast interviews, I do conversations like this virtually, and it's great. It's awesome. But I mean, I love a nice handshake. I love a slap. I love a hug, like a touch. Those are the things that ultimately remind us that yeah, we are human. We're a body. There's a body that's here. Okay. So what does the church say about this question, right? Well, I don't think I mean, I haven't seen anything specific when it comes to non-sexual touch. The question is one of prudence and one of discernment within yourself. Um, like knowing what's the on-ramp, what's leading you towards sexual arousal, okay? And knowing that, right? Um, even in marriage, I counsel my couples when I'm doing counseling in the formal sense or when I'm doing lectures and seminars on the topic, that even in marriage, couples need to have a healthy amount of non-sexual physical contact,
For
right?
sure.
Because if all the physical contact that you have is only leading towards sex, then it puts a ton of pressure. That anytime a kiss is given, it's like, oh, what does he mean by that? Or what does he
Right.
want? We just want to watch a movie and sit on the couch together. Is that okay? Or is it that he wants something more? And it's always going to be met with suspicion if every time there's physical touch in marriage, it leads to sex. And so you should be able to set a boundary, even when you're dating, to be able to have healthy expressions of physical contact. When you think of something even like the five love languages, one of the love languages is physical contact, right? Physical touch. Now, maybe we can argue the validity of the five love languages. Fine, whatever. Okay, like whether it's scientifically valid, whatever. But at least we can all acknowledge that there are some people, and we have the friends like that are a little more touchy feely than the other friends. We have the friends that like when you see them, they want to give you the hug and they want to, you know, they just, and then you have the other friends, you're like,
Yep.
that's just so that plays out even within the context of dating. So I would say, um, again, knowing the person who you're with, how comfortable you feel, giving a hug. Can it just be a hug? Hispanics, we kiss on the cheek whenever we meet a woman. I mean, so there's a cultural elements to this. And so giving a woman a handshake as you say goodbye is almost rude. Like it's got to come in with with a kiss on the cheek on the side. I mean, that's all there's cultural elements to this as well. That I'm okay with, and I think the church is also. The church gives space for different cultural expressions, and physical contact is going to look differently in different cultures. We look at the Japanese, and eye contact and bowing is the physical kind of gesture. In the West, we give a good handshake, is what we do when we greet and when we leave. So I would say, even when it comes to dating, knowing yourself, all right, and being smart with yourself. Like if you do need that, and you're in a relationship, and you want to be able to sit on the couch together and watch a show, okay, but like, can you do that at 2 o'clock in the afternoon and it not lead to something? Or is it only at 9 p.m. after a long work, or 11 p.m. and it's going to lead to something, right? Like you gotta know thyself. And you got to know like when it's going to be in an appropriate, healthy context, and when it's not.
Yep.
And so knowing what moves you down, what revs the engine, what starts, kind of down that path is an individual question. Um, but then such is also the capacity for touch, and how much one needs that,
Right.
is also an individual question. So know thyself.
It reminds me of shout out to my parish priest growing up, Father Sean Haggerty. He gave a homily once, and it was all about shaking the priest's hands, right? And
Yeah.
it's like the importance of touch is like, even for a priest, it's like this is the most important, one of the most important things to a healthy life. Even for a priest, for everyone, is the ability to have touch, right?
Yes.
In a non-sexual way as well, right? It's
Mhm.
It's one of the most essential parts of being human. We are communal by
Yes.
nature, right? We don't believe Rousseau here at Catholic Match, right? We
Yeah,
are communal
no,
by
no,
nature.
that's right. That's right.
So
Yeah,
yeah,
I
no,
mean, because and touch it heals the nervous system. I mean, it's like it's how we were comforted as kids. Like when we were crying as a child, your mom didn't just like stare at you and be like, "Okay, like and maybe they did. I don't know. If they did that, then please send me an email and let's do a couple sessions. All right. Like, but like, like what they did is that they hugged you, right? And when you're feeling like that's why, because that the adult would help us calm down. It would help to regulate our nervous system. And so touch is very important, is very important. And we can't be too scrupulous about it. That's the point that
Mhm,
I'm making here. Like we
sure.
can't be too prudish about it. We have to acknowledge that like there is a healthy sense of touch. In Catholicism, we get it. We're like the mass, for example, it's a very corporal, physical endeavor. I mean, all of our senses are stimulated in the context of mass. The beauty of the church, the songs that we listen to, the incense and the smell, the taste of the Eucharist. I mean, it acknowledges all of this and brings it all into worship. And so we have a body. It's a necessary body. It's going to be with us for all of time and eternity. So yes, touch is important because it's part of human expression again, as long as you just know, right, what's appropriate and what's not
Right.
appropriate, and what moves you too far, and that's how you exercise the virtue of chastity within your own heart.
For sure, for sure. I love that. That's I want to respect your time, Mari. So that's all the time we have. We have thank you guys so much for all your questions. We had tons of questions pouring in.
Yeah.
Before we let you go, Mario, could you tell these people where they can find you?
Yeah, so I would love folks to check out my podcast, Always Hope. You can listen to it on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts. The videos are on YouTube. You can check it all out. I'm taking a little bit of a summer break right now, so I had my last episode came out in June, and my next episode probably won't come out until August or September. Just taking a little bit of summer break to be with the kids, and and kind of regroup and kind of get my bearing straight for moving forward. But please check out Always Hope. I have a thousand. I don't have a thousand episodes. I have hundreds, tons of episodes related to dating and to help you navigate that. So I would encourage people to do that. If you're one of the people that had a question that wasn't answered tonight, then I do have on my website. If you go to drmariosacasa.com, I have a Hey Dr. Mario tab, and leave your question there, and maybe that question will get answered in a future episode of Always Hope. So
Definitely.
please head on over to the website drmariosacasa.com, Dr. Mario Sacasa, or Doctor, or whatever, however you want to go. Either way, it's going to land you the same place. So please just head on over to the website. You can learn more about the work that I'm doing. You can see the things that I'm up to. You can listen to these episodes of the show. You can access Dating Well, or you can leave a question for a future episode of Always Hope. And I would love to be able to receive those questions. Love to be able to pick up some more listeners. I think the work that we're doing on the show is really important, and I want to be able to just reach as many people as possible to help guide them in their relationship, emotional, and spiritual lives. And so that would be the best place that I would encourage people to check me out.